What's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Perret. Today we have an exciting episode with Ben Welch of the Millennial Real Estate Investor podcast. He's a friend of mine. We're going to talk about some of his developments in Denver as well as some of his out-of-state investing. His first deal was an 8-unit deal halfway across the nation. So definitely check it out. Some good tidbits in here. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining the community. This podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment. Show notes can be found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast. Now relax and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Military Millionaire Podcast, a show about real estate investing for the working class. Stay tuned as we explore ways to help you improve your finances, build wealth through real estate, and become a person that is worth knowing.
I'll look that way, and then I'll look this way, and then we'll just wing it, and we'll just see what happens.
Beautiful.
So, sounds
That'd
good.
be good.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave from Military to Millionaire. I'm here with Ben Welch of I totally just botched it, the Millennial Real Estate Investor podcast.
There we go.
I just talked to him about how I was going to mess that up and confirmed it, and here I go.
Okay, so I have this running joke on our podcast that Dan gives me crap every time because I mess people's last names up like 80% of the time.
Awesome. So,
yours,
Dan
actually,
put
I
me
think
up
I
to
got.
this.
Yeah.
So thanks, Dan,
Thanks,
for
Dan.
covering for me. So Ben's out here in Hawaii, clearly, and he's visiting the island, not me, but we ran into each other. I was on their podcast. I guess I came out like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
I don't know. We did it a while ago. It just came out. And they were a lot of fun to be on the podcast with. And so we ate at B-Dubs. We ate some wings. We were hanging out. And I was like, you're going to be on my podcast. And then, ta-da.
Here we are.
We really didn't do any other planning because, as you can tell, I've not normally got 2 people in here. And we're like recording the screen while we're doing a Zoom chat to ourselves with like 2 different mics. We'll see what happens. So anyway, if you're on the YouTube version, this is a lot more fun. If you're on the audio version, I'll probably cut all this part out and you'll just get the actual podcast. So not as much fun. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
First in-person podcaster. So
yeah, here we go. I like to be the first, start the trend. Actually, it's not a bad trend. More people should come visit you in Hawaii.
It's an incentive.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a nice view outside.
Absolutely. So my name's Ben Welch. I am an investor. I am from Denver, Colorado, invest in Memphis, Tennessee. I have a couple development projects going on in Colorado as well. And also, like Dave said, am one of the hosts of the Millennial Real Estate Investor podcast. So that's me in 30 seconds.
Wow. All right. Well, and we didn't prep this because I didn't ask him about all the real estate stuff he wanted to get into. So I'm just going to ask, what kind of developing are you doing in Denver? Because that sounds really cool.
Yeah. So this was like sort of a detour from what I've been focused on, which we'll see if that's a good or bad thing. But we have 3 single-family homes that we're building just east of where we are. So it's about 10 miles away. My previous investing had all been out of state. So this is kind of fun to actually have it close. So me and 2 other partners are building 3 single-family homes.
That's pretty cool. How did you get into that? Did you just stumble on some land, or was it a...
Sorta. So the 3 of us had this idea for a while that we were going to do this because one of the partners is a general contractor, and he's been doing this in Southern Colorado for a while now. And we all thought, and then the other partner is my business partner on the real estate agent side, because I also have my license in Colorado. So we all kind of stumbled upon this, like, hey, we should kind of do what one of our guys is doing down south closer to us. And actually, funny story, the first time we tried to do this, we totally failed, but very successfully failed. So we bought this piece of land for like $190. It had just been dropped from $323 down to $190.
Wow.
Real prime area, and we thought, okay, this was dropped $130K.
Huge drop.
Yeah. So we're thinking if it's worth anything close to where it was before and it wasn't selling, then we're good. So we bought this beautiful piece of land. We were going to build a house on it. We were starting the home building process. And the day after we closed, we put it up on the market and just said, okay, throw out this huge number that if somebody takes it, we have no choice other than to sell it. Well, somebody took it and closed 3 weeks later for like $100,000 more than we bought it for, which worked out really well for our third partner because he was sort of the key financial partner in that one.
Yeah.
We took a commission from it and we were all happy. Walked away and on to the next one.
Flipping a piece of raw land.
Yeah.
That's, what's his name would be proud of you? RE Tipster or REI Tipster?
Yeah, Seth Williams.
Yeah, he'd be proud of you. That's his game, right?
Yeah,
raw land.
We like Seth. We've had him on the podcast too. He's a good guy.
Get him on there once. I got to meet him finally at FinCon. He is a good guy.
Yeah.
So, that's cool because you didn't have to do anything, and with like raw land, I mean, no renovation, no. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I don't want to focus the whole time on land, but I do have this like little soft spot in my heart for land. It's just like, people don't understand how to judge the value of a piece of land. It's so hard because comps mean very little. You can have this one that we did, you can be down the block and have, it was a 1 acre piece of land that we had. You can be down the block and at the bottom of the hill, and it's worth half as much as the piece of land we had at the top of the hill. So there are all these other factors going into it, and I think that, for people who like the idea of land, there's definitely something there. There's money to be made.
Yeah, and especially, the idea that you can change a zoning code,
right,
and like triple the value of a piece of land.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of, and then there's, was it Ty Lopez that was talking at the 10X Growth Conference? The idea of if you see that a town is building and you just buy land and you just sit on it, it doesn't cost much to hold on to raw land. There's no maintenance. You might not make any money,
right?
But then 5 years down the road, it's worth so much more than you put into it, and it's like you did nothing, right?
Yeah, so it's a speculative play, whereas like the rest of my investing is so steady and cash flow based that this is like almost just something fun on the side. That if you can be speculative, do it. If you can't afford to take that speculative risk, I would say, for anybody listening, that may not be the place to start.
Yeah, I don't know if the land is, because it is until you flip it or make some kind of, capital gains on it, there's no profit. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Even if the taxes, if the taxes aren't high, it's still a negative cash flow until you do something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's still cool. So then you did that, and then you moved on to this other patch with the 3 houses.
Yep. So we sold that one, and then I decided I wanted to be part of the financial mix of this one too. So basically, we have 2 financial partners, and then our third partner is running the whole show, running the project. And we got a pretty good price on these 3 pieces of land in a subdivision that had been done 10 years ago. And there were like a couple houses, but 10 years ago was, well, I guess we're 2019 now. So it was actually like 12 years ago, right before the recession.
Yeah.
So they made this beautiful neighborhood that was supposed to be full of custom homes, like 40 lots in it. And then 2 people built, and that was it. And then it just sat for another 10 years.
Oh yeah. I guess that would, because Denver is definitely a market that took a hit.
We took a hit a little bit, and this is like outside of Denver enough, the metro area enough that I think it got hit worse out there. So we came in, we got a decent price on these, and we'll hopefully break ground.
Well, it's a really cool strategy to have a general contractor as a partner with that. Because a lot of people look into like building or developing, and a lot of times, and it depends on your market, but a lot of times the numbers don't work because by the time you pay the contractor and the labor, there's a lot of places like it would cost. So for me, I bought my duplex. The lot next door is vacant. It's like $6,000, right? I'm like, oh great, I was gonna buy it. I started doing my research. I'm like, it's gonna cost me more to build a duplex there than this thing costs.
Yeah.
So I should just buy another duplex somewhere else.
Right.
So, I think getting a contractor involved is a pretty cool play.
I think it's the only way that would have worked for us.
Yeah.
We've kind of run the numbers other ways to see if it would work out if we hadn't have done it that way. And I don't think it'd work. So this way, he has a cut too. He's also one of the financial partners, so he has that cut and he's lending his expertise as a GC. So everybody's incentives are directed the right way.
That's really cool. So what about Memphis? What do you do there? What's your strategy long distance? Because it's kind of funny that you say that you invested long distance before you ever started moving short. A lot of people don't do that.
Right. We should get into that too. I think why people avoid long distance. It's the boogeyman is.
I've got the book down there.
David Green's book. Nice. So in Memphis, I own 8 units and bought those about 2 years ago, and it's been a ride there. Yeah. So a lot of lessons learned. That was obviously my first investment, and I think there are so many good things. Oh, sorry guys, anybody watching.
Our super professional, really well planned podcast got interrupted by a phone noise. What are we gonna do?
Oh no. So, I think so. I went to Memphis for the purpose of buying steady cash flow rentals, and so far that's actually worked out fairly well. The reason I went to Memphis was we had a friend who was already investing out there, made it a little bit safer, gave me some kind of anchor of stability in Memphis, and he introduced me to his agent, his property manager, which ended up being one and the same person, and then contractors and everybody else too. So was going for cash flow there, bought this 8-unit complex, which is kind of unique. It's actually 4 duplexes altogether.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I went out there, the first time I went out there, I believe strongly in if you want to invest out of state, go show up there, like drive around the neighborhoods, get to know people. And the first time I went out, we looked at about 35 houses the first weekend. Jeez. Which is like a marathon.
Yeah, that gets tiresome for sure.
Yeah.
The poor agent is probably like, oh my God.
Oh, he's the man. He's the man. So he took me around to see 35. I found this one and it was just like, yeah, this is it. It was a lot cheaper than everything else. It had some issues, but issues that are like I think somebody on the Bigger Pockets podcast a long time used to talk about how he'd take his kids into a house, and as soon as they smelled a bad smell in the house, the kids would say it smells like money.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm trying to figure out who
it was. Like a real early one.
I was going to say it was one of the first 30 or 40.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Like I saw it and I was like, okay, these are solvable problems. And the agent also was related to the owner, married to the owner's son, who thought he was going to inherit the property, so that the whole family did everything they possibly could to make the deal not happen, which I think is another lesson for like trying to get your first deal. Sometimes I could have given up so many times, and sometimes you just have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Just, make it happen after months or whatever it takes.
I think that's a big piece. The whole, we talk about taking action, but, people get stuck in analysis paralysis, but at the end of the day, it's not always an easy process. And you have to know that going in and know that this is what you want and push through that. That's the barrier to entry that makes real estate such a great investment.
Yeah.
It's not like the stock market where you can go TD Ameritrade and be like, click, click, click. Oh man, I'm going to be a millionaire.
Right. I mean, I suppose you could go out there and buy a $10,000 house somewhere and stumble into it. Yeah. But I mean,
actually, and I'm not going to say a name, but I'm doing this coaching program, right? For those of you who don't know, I kind of started I'm not trying to plug anything, but I'm running a beta test on a potential coaching program. One of the ladies, she was like, called a neighborhood, called a house, and was just like, you want to give me your house? And I kid you not, the guy said, because it had been abandoned forever, right? The guy's like, yeah, sure. So, but you can't give someone a house. She bought it for $1. Closed on a property for $1. And it's needed some renovation, but it's still like she's going to end up being all in for like half of what the property's worth. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Wow.
I'm like, I need you on the podcast to tell that story because that's hilarious. I was like laughing, rolling out of my chair. I'm like, you did what? Huh? Like, I don't know.
Wow. I wonder what even sparked that.
I have no idea.
I'm not sure I would ever be brave enough to just start calling people and say, hey, want to give me your house?
I don't know that I'd ever even think about that. Like, I was just like, and that's your first house. I'm
It's
like,
amazing.
what in the world?
That's amazing.
And it's out of state. And I'm like, well, I'm talking about some craziness. So
Yeah.
she's
Bravo.
Like, I need to find a property manager for this house I got for $1. I'm like, what? Who? A house for a what? How many dollars?
Man, refi out of that and you're completely positive.
Pretty cool idea. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No.
Where were we? I went rabbit trail. Oh, duplex. So, or not duplex, but the first house. Did it end up working out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's still working out. It's been 2 years worth of lessons. I've never had a month where I've lost money on it.
That's good.
So that's been a good thing, right? And that's kind of why I went multifamily in the first place, because if 3 people move out, I'm still covering the mortgage and the utilities and everything. So that's been really good. The neighborhood has turned tremendously since I bought it. And I kind of was going for that to begin with. I knew where I bought and I knew I liked the neighborhood, but appreciation is also always just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, an extra bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So in the next probably 6 months, I bought for $100 for all 8 units. Wow. And I think I've put about 80 in total since I bought. And after this year, we'll stabilize out. I'll refi and basically be able to pull all the initial cash back out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Burr method, just
on steroids.
Longer than most people's Burr method.
Yeah,
it's
but
been
also
a 2
with
year.
a lot more cash involved.
Yeah.
To be able to do it with an 8 unit, I mean, you'll have a lot more cash flow when you pull out, I would imagine, than.
Hopefully. Yeah.
That's really cool. So your first deal was 8 units, halfway across the nation.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, in Memphis, Tennessee.
Which is somewhere that you didn't really know anything about except for a guy you knew.
Yeah, a guy I knew, and the numbers look good because it's the same as a lot of the Midwest, that the price to rent ratios are so good that basically the amount you're getting in rent compared to the price that you're paying for the house is so much better than as compared to like Denver, for example. I might pay, let's say $400 for a house that I'm going to rent for $1,800. So that's like, you're not doing very well at that point. You're well under 0.5% that you're getting back in rent.
Yeah. Whereas I paid $81,000 for a duplex, full offer price, and it rents for $1,000 and some change.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Midwest is definitely a cash flow market. But
Yeah.
You'll never really appreciate. I mean, you might, but not much.
Yeah.
Like my property's gone up like $5,000 when the rest of the world's gone up like 20%. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think for investors, especially investors getting going, you have to figure out what you want out of it. If you want cash flow and you're okay with very flat appreciation, then great, there are markets for that. If you want to speculate on appreciation a little bit more, then go to Denver and cover your costs, make sure you're cash flowing a little bit, and then hope. I don't know.
Yeah, cross your fingers. And
that hasn't been my strategy, but I think that
appreciation has a good. I mean, there's good plays there, but
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed the trend on YouTube. Everybody's posting all the videos about the recession.
Right.
And I'm like, fearmonger. I mean, I kind of hope there's a recession. I could not until after you guys flip your single family houses,
Yeah, cross your fingers for about 7 months from now.
But I mean, I could go for some cheap houses, but then again, in the Midwest, it really won't affect much. It'll still be roughly the same price for everything. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is nice. My appreciation curve goes like a flat line, so I'm okay with that.
Right. And the thing about the recession is, if you have rentals and you're holding on to them for the purpose of cash flow, what do you care if we have a recession?
I don't.
I mean,
my rent
doesn't
price
matter.
might actually go up.
Right.
People move out of their house, they need a place to live. I say, sorry you lost your house, but I already have potential renters, so you're gonna have to give me more money, or I'm not gonna rent you.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I think you'd care if you owned like Class A properties, where these people are. If you lose a job, then they move down to a Class B because that's what they can afford now.
Yeah.
But I don't know, where you'd consider your properties, but mine are probably C plus properties.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have tenants no matter what if we hit a recession.
Exactly. It's the same thought I had when Missouri recently voted for the $15 minimum wage, and everybody was like super excited, and they're talking about how they all, I don't want to say small-minded, but all the people who don't understand finances, who can't figure out, don't take this the wrong way, but the people who can't figure out how to get away from a job making minimum wage, and they're just stuck in that trap, generally the same people who don't understand that raising the minimum wage is not going to solve all your problems, because there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. One of which being that I'm going to increase my rent because you can now afford more, and the rest of the market's going up, and so I'm going to end up making more money because I bought before the rent went up.
Yeah.
And so everyone's so opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm over here like, well, I think it was really dumb to raise the wage, but I'm really happy you did because I get to increase my rent next year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. It works out well, and that's why being a buy and hold investor, if you have a little bit of patience and you're smart about what you're doing, is such a good long-term strategy.
Absolutely. All right, so we could talk real estate all day. I'm curious to hear what is, and this is a totally different question that we didn't prep at all. What do you think is like the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from running a podcast on real estate investing?
Oh, that's a good question.
I had another really good question, and then I realized that I should ask you that when we're not recording because I don't think anyone wants to hear your answer. I was going to ask him who his favorite podcast guest was and if I could get their contact info so I could interview him. And then I realized you probably shouldn't say that publicly because everyone else will get mad. Including me, because, unless
I thought you were just looking for a plug back.
See, I was his favorite. I'll say it myself. No. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, because I've gotten a lot out of running podcasts. I'm curious to hear what you think's the biggest takeaway, because this is your second podcast.
This is our second. Right? Yeah, so the first one we ran was purely entrepreneurial. It was called Ditching 9 to 5. It's still out there, but we don't really do anything with it. No. We pivoted to real estate because that's what we needed to focus on. Both of us are in real estate, and my partner Dan Mackin, who hosts the podcast with me, both of us are in real estate. We needed to get focused in life more than we were. And we were also like denying all these real estate guests on our other show, even though that's like what we wanted to talk about anyway. So we had to like split them out. So that's why we went to real estate. But in terms of a takeaway from running a podcast, I think that, if anybody's out there looking to start a podcast, if nothing else, it's an incredible way to network with people like yourself. Like my wife and I are out here in Hawaii for a month, and I happen to be sitting in your office, and we've made a connection that we wouldn't have made otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been one of the coolest things about doing it.
I would agree. That's actually, I've been thinking about that a lot this last week. So people talk about, what's your end goal with the podcast? Do you want to sponsor? How are you going to monetize the podcast? And I honestly, I don't care if I ever monetize the podcast. Yeah. I get to sit down and have a 30 to 40 minute conversation, maybe an hour. I had one with Phil, the video I showed you earlier that's going to come out soon with us drinking a beer.
Yeah.
We did a podcast. We filmed for like an hour and some change, and then when the recording went off, we talked for like another hour and a half. Finally, I was like, I'm late for work. It's like been like 3 hours. I need to go. But 40 minutes of getting to ask any question you want to ask.
Yeah.
Like one-on-one with people that normally you wouldn't have access to. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And that's the same thing that we've done all the time too. What you guys see on a podcast or hear on a podcast is like half the conversation, because usually you hang up and you're like, oh, I have like 12 more questions. And it just keeps going for a while. So, but that goes along with, we ask this question on our podcast every time about what's a big unexpected benefit you've got from real estate investing. Yeah. And it's funny because the number one thing, we've actually started saying you can't say this anymore. You got to come up with something else. The number one thing we've heard from everybody is the biggest unexpected benefit of real estate investing are the people you get to meet. It's such a cool community.
It is. I joke, the FinCon community, I joke because I'm like, the reason I went into real estate is not for the real estate, it's for the people. And I was like, because I'm in the Marine Corps and we're like oh, this is my podcast. I can say whatever I want. We're like the bastard stepchildren of the military branches. Not really. Don't take that the wrong way, Marine Corps. But we're like we isolate ourselves by sitting in a corner and being like, we're better than all of you. We're badasses, right? And we're like the guys drinking the beer, doing all. Just
right.
That's like the persona, right? And I think we were in FinCon, and all the real estate guys were like smuggling Coronas into the ending award night and like drinking beer in the back. Everyone's all serious, like cheering for their favorite people, and we're like drinking Coronas and shotgunning beer,
enjoying life.
We got told by the hotel we weren't allowed to bring our own beer in, so we had to go outside. I'm like, this is the perfect group of people for me.
Absolutely.
So I love it. The real estate people are good people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are always afraid to like go to their first real estate meetup or like start networking in the real estate community. And it's like, because it can be intimidating to go to these people who are, even a step above you in success in real estate. But it's not like that. No. Once you jump in, once you go to a meetup, like you run a meetup out here in Oahu.
I bring pizza. Some people show up with beer. We hang out on the beach. And in fact, Doug Nordman, like we were there the other day, and he comes walking up out of the water because he'd been surfing for an hour before the meetup started.
So lesson number 2, you guys should make it out here to join in on the meetups and the real estate conversations.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's worth it.
Sometimes we get like, last time we had this homeless guy come up, and I don't know what was going on. He like was trying to, it was weird. He ended up joining the conversation though for like 45 minutes, and I don't know what he was talking about real estate, but he was like a whole group of people hanging out, and I'm like, but he came up to like basically say, if you see something, say something. And I see a bunch of weird people gathered under a light in a pavilion, and I'm wondering what you guys are all doing here. Like,
we are some weird
we were
people.
Like dealing drugs or something. We're like, no, we're just talking real estate. And he's like, oh, can I join? I'm like, yeah. And he just hung out with us the whole rest of the night. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Drank some beer, ate some pizza. It was a good time.
That's awesome.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an odd group. Anyway, I digress. All right, so I should probably at least ask one of my normal questions, right? Look, guys, you don't ever see this because it's on the screen normally, but it's even laminated like a professional.
Yeah, this is fancy.
I'm a professional.
I can spill all over it.
Yeah, except that I had all this so I could write my own notes, and then even my like dry erase markers stay on it, so it didn't work. I can't. I like, you could tell there's like residue, so I like finally gave up and was like, I'm just gonna do it on the computer. Anyway, so if a 19, 20-year-old walked up to you asking you for advice on real estate, life, whatever, what would be your life lesson in your wise old age?
Wise old age. That's a good one, though. I think, so I'm going to kind of two-part this answer.
You only get one part.
All right, well, you guys will be left with half an answer.
There's the hook. And
you have to come back to find out more next week. No, I think that, and this is tough at 19 or 20, but I think that you have to figure out what you want your life to look like and what your goals are in real estate. So, do you want to be active? Do you want to be a flipper? Do you want to get your hands dirty and be in it every day? Because there are so many different ways that you can go about being successful in real estate. So do you want to be active, or do you want to set up, a base of passive cash flow so that you can go pursue other things in your life? And both ways are okay, but you have to figure out what your goal is. And then part 2 of the answer, after you figure out what your goal is you got to figure out what can move the needle today on that. So like, I know that you've just read The One Thing recently.
I've read it at least twice, I think.
Or reviewed it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I did do the review here recently. Yeah, it's a good book.
So I think like employing that mentality, and if you guys haven't read the book, go pick it up. It's awesome. So figure out what your goal is, and then figure out every day what you can do. Like, what's the thing I need to do to move that goal forward? So if I were 19 or 20, that's what I'd do. And I'd go sooner is the other thing. I'd buy sooner.
Yeah, people think age is such a disadvantage. In fact, this guy I'm going through like lawsuit stuff with or whatever, he would always bring up how long he'd been in the business, how experienced he was, and he'd say, I understand that you've only been doing it, and he's never seen me. He doesn't know how old I am, and he doesn't know how experienced I am, but I guess he figured out that I'm not as old as him, so he assumed that meant something. And I was always just kind of like, all right, cool, man. Like, that doesn't matter. In fact, if anything, it's an advantage that I'm young. Yeah, maybe I haven't done it as long, but if you're 20 and you start investing, like compound interest on your learning, compound interest on your investment, you know, a 20-year-old could buy 2 properties, 30-year note, doesn't cash flow, break even, and before they're retired, have 2 paid off assets that are cash flowing like a king.
Yeah.
Whereas I'll be, you know, if I do that now, I'm going to be in my 60s, right?
Yeah.
You know, 50s, 60s, whatever. It's a whole different ballgame. That 10 or 20 years. So
yeah, and you know, especially if you're at 19 or 20, either way, you're in this position where most likely, unless you're married really young, you're okay with living with roommates. So why not buy a house and have your roommates pay your mortgage for you?
yeah, and if everything else fails, you're like 20 years old. You can get back on your feet. And figure it out,
Exactly.
Right? Like,
Exactly.
Not as crippling as when you're 40 and your life falls apart and you're 20. You're supposed to wreck your life at 21 anyway, so why not do it financially instead of alcohol?
Wreck it smarter than the rest of your friends. I don't know.
You're going to end up in jail for bankruptcy, not drugs. It's so much better. Anyway, I digress again. Look at this. This is why I don't do interviews in person. I talk too much. What's a good one here? I normally ask, like, what makes the Ben Welch method of investing in real estate unique? And since I said that out loud, I'm going to ask it anyway. I was going to skip it, and then I said it out loud anyway. So there you go.
All right. So what makes the Ben Welch method of real estate investing unique?
Or successful. It's kind of like a spin-off of the Bigger Pockets question.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just not as cool as Beardy Brand, and I only have the top beard going on.
Top beard. So. I got no beard, so I'm definitely not as cool.
There we go. We're like the off-brand David and Brandon team.
Yeah, there we go. I think that, you know, I think I've been able to see, you know, the little bit of success that I have because I wasn't afraid to go out of state. And I think that a lot of people let that hold them back. Like today, you know, even with contractors, you can go on Thumbtack and find people to do what you need. Going out of state just isn't that big of a deal. So I think that that's one thing, and then just always looking for opportunity. Yeah. I think, you know, keeping your eyes open for what's out there.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're willing to develop something new in Denver, that's a unique. Not a lot of people developing on the smaller scale, I guess. Like, you meet the guys who do like developments,
right?
And then you meet guys who like flip houses, but it's not very common even nowadays, even with the market coming back up, to watch people do like building seems to be a primary residence thing. It's not as common to be an investor thing, so it's cool. Yeah,
I mean, we'll do a follow-up in 7 or 8 months and see how it goes.
Yeah, and the market will have gone up 100%, and he'll be a billionaire.
That's right.
Or 1,000%.
With a B.
Yes.
Off of 3 single families. I'll take it. I'll wait for it.
One neighborhood in Denver where Jeff Bezos moved, because Amazon's going to change their plan. Anyway, and he's not going to get divorced, so he'll still be the richest man in the world.
Right.
All of this will come true, and he'll make it to Mars before Elon. I don't. If you're listening out there, Blue Angel or whatever the Amazon company is, I love you guys. All right. So, what is one resource, book, podcast? Not your podcast, not my podcast. We know it would have been my podcast. What is one resource that you think stands out from the rest in the flood of real estate business stuff?
So I already said the one thing. I think that is like truly powerful in what you can do. The other best book that I've read on real estate that's not on real estate is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
I don't have it here because I have only done Audible. I need to order it. I've talked about that book 3 times today to coaching students.
Yeah.
I love that book.
Absolutely. I mean, like, life-changing book, because it could be about your work if you're in a W-2. It could be about your relationships with your wife, your kids, whoever. Like, it's just it teaches you how to listen and how to understand people. Yeah, I think is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and then it teaches you. I mean, I saved like $4,000 negotiating repair costs before I even finished reading the book. Yeah, I was just like using random stuff. In fact, it's funny. So long story short, it only needed like 9 or 10 grand to fix this house, and so I asked for like 16 and some change, like some really weird number, right? They came back at like 11. Yeah. And I was like, oh well, that's more than I needed. But I was so in the book that I'm like, I can't just take their first offer, so I did a counter and it bumped it up. I ended up making like I got like $4,000 cash out of the deal.
Yeah.
Without needing it for repairs, just because I was like, well, let's ask the question.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And it worked. And
it teaches you the right way to go about doing that.
Yeah.
That will work. Like I've read other negotiation books that are kind of hard-headed, like I'm going to just brute force my way through this negotiation. That's not what this is at all. So
no.
That one, that's...
What was the quote I said today? I felt smart saying it. Now I can't remember it. That's how you know it was smart. It's over my head now. Like I do swap meet. I do the garage sale flip thing now for fun. And I was like, negotiating real estate is not nearly the same as negotiating flea market. People think negotiation and they think like, will you do 10? Oh, I'm not going above 10. No, you got to do 10. How about 9.5? You know, it's like,
right.
No, that's not. Sometimes in real estate, like giving them the dollar amount they want is the biggest play you can make, because now they're happy and now you ask for something they're not expecting, like a 0.5% off your interest or
absolutely
whatever, and all of a sudden you're walking away. They're happy, you're happy, and you just made like the best play ever.
Yeah.
With some abstract thing they wouldn't have even known.
Yeah.
I always like to joke about negotiating for the hot tub. Like, I'll give you the price you want, but you're leaving the hot tub, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
we just actually, so for a client of mine, we just did that about a month ago. We got almost all the furniture, hot tub, everything included, because we gave them their price. And my client was okay with the price. And actually, we offered 10 grand less.
Yeah.
But we gave by coming up to that price, and we found other ways to make it worth it. And that's the cool thing about real estate. You don't, like you said, it's not like being at the flea market. All I have is my dollar and your whatever you're selling me.
Yeah.
And that's it. Otherwise, you know, with real estate though, you have terms, length of terms, interest, accessories, you know, whatever.
I always like to say like my price, your terms, your price, my terms, and that's where you win.
Yep.
If the price works at full asking price, you don't offer full asking price, but you offer low. They always say no, and then you're like, okay, fine, I'll come up to your price, and whatever you throw in there is almost always better than.
It's very important.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book's huge. That's a good point. I think you're the first one to recommend that book. I love it. So.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. All right. So before we wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to add? I should have been like timing this. I'm sure this is probably going to be like one of my longer podcasts because it's just easy to talk when you're in person.
Yeah. So, that's all right. All right. We'll wrap it up here. No, I think that. Obviously our show's the Millennial Real Estate Investor podcast, so we believe strongly that more young people should be investing. And I think that that's the biggest takeaway. If you're young, no matter what else you're doing in life, you should start looking into this because it will do more for you to jump into the game smartly and do whatever you need to do than if you're sitting on the sidelines not building some kind of financial stability.
I agree. Now, I was going to ask where people can get a hold of him. We'll do that again in a second. But because he mentioned his podcast, I'm gonna go out and just say, so for all my old salty military listeners, how do you define millennial?
That's a great question.
I was not the first person, I believe, who came on your show and was like, just don't call me millennial.
Yeah.
Jokingly, because I am, unfortunately. But I'm not. That's why I have the upper. I'm going to start calling this my top beard.
Top beard.
My top beard, so that I don't look as young as I am.
Yeah, I think that, our definition of millennial stretches. We have many people in the gray area of millennial. I think that basically what it comes down to for us is if you're like, 35, 37 or under, like you should be doing this. You should be investing. Yeah. So who knows? Somewhere in that range. I don't know, 18 to 35 right now.
There we go. So that's all of you. Majority of my audience is 24 to 35, so you're welcome.
There we go.
All right, so where can people get a hold of you? Google Millennial Real Estate Investor.
Yeah, so millennial-realestate.com is our website. Go on there for show notes, whatever. If you want to reach out to me directly, the email for the podcast is podcast@millennial-realestate.com. That'll go to Dan, my partner, and I, and we'll get it So yeah,
Awesome.
feel
And
free to reach out.
I'll plug all that in the show notes. So
Cool.
awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show and in my guest room,
Yeah.
office, place, Hawaii.
That's right.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me, man.